All right, let's go ahead and get started. Can you guys hear me okay? Perfect. Okay, well, welcome to our last live session for Design 105. Um, First of all, I want to just tell you guys thanks so much for all the hard work you've put in this mod. It's been great to work with you guys, and it's been really awesome seeing the stuff that you've been turning in. I hope you guys have enjoyed the course as well, and hope that you have a better understanding of InDesign and what you would use it for and how you would use it. Like I said in the first course that we had, the first live session, InDesign's a tool you're going to find yourself using in many of your courses. It's honestly one of the, if not the most commonly used application for assignments and things that you guys are going to have. So I'm grateful to you guys for putting in the effort, and I hope that you're feeling like, excuse me, feeling like that you are comfortable at least with the basics of InDesign. And so what we're going to be doing today, we're going to talk about a couple of problem areas with last week's assignment, a couple of things that I see regularly pop up, just so that if you're one of the ones that struggled with this, you'll see how to solve it. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about style sheets. We're going to talk about particularly, I have in here appending style sheets, and we already talked about that. I might touch on it again, but we're specifically going to talk about overriding it and how to clear those overrides. And then we're going to talk about some other mechanical issues that you may have run into. And then we'll go on and we will talk and we'll talk about our discussion and our assignment and assessment for this week. And I'm going to be doing a full demonstration this week, just like I did last week, completing pages 2 and 3 of our newsletter for our assignment. So you should see everything you need there. And then at the very end of the class, we're going to go over a couple of additional tools that we haven't talked about yet because they weren't entirely necessary in the assignments, but ones that are definitely important and that you will definitely want to use or know about in future work that you're doing with InDesign. Before we jump into that, though, I want to just go over in the announcements and point out that I've posted in here our learning coaches schedule for week 4. So Christy is going to be available again on Wednesday from 12 to 7, and then Thursday from 12 to 5. And of course, we'll be doing our multi-session on Thursday from 12:30 to 2:30 as usual. And then you've got all the other multi-sessions in the Student Success Center available as well if you need some help. Also in the announcements, I posted, and just to let you guys know, I finished all of the grading yesterday for everything that has been turned in as of now. Well, not as of now, as of yesterday when I finished that. And that includes any resubmissions, any late submissions, so you can go in and read through those. And as always, if you lost some points for anything and would like to get those back, you are welcome to revise your work based upon the comments that are in the rubric and resubmit it, and I will regrade it and adjust your score. All right. Now, let's jump back over here. And let's talk about this week. If you are going to be revising something and resubmitting it, I'd ask that you have it to me by Friday at midnight. The reason is I have to have all of the grading for the course finished and turned in by Sunday to the school. And so since I'll be doing all the grading for week 4, I just want to make sure that I have enough time to grade everyone's resubmissions as well. So if you're going to be revising something from weeks 1, 2, or 3 and resubmitting it, or if you have something that's missing from weeks 1, 2, or 3 and needs to be turned in as late work, please get those in by Friday at midnight. And then just remember that this week, there's no way to turn in late work. So please, like I said, I'm going to be doing a full demo of our assignment this week, so you should have everything you need to get to do that once this course, this live session is done. But just give yourself enough time, get started earlier in the week, and so you can get that in, because if the 11:59 deadline passes this week, then the course closes and it won't let you submit anything after that. And a couple things. Do remember, I've had a couple of people email me at 10:30 at night or so on Saturday because they're having a problem either submitting something or because they're having a problem with finishing up something on the assignment. And so please remember, if you are having a problem with the class itself, if you need, like, you're trying to submit something and it's not working, you want to go into the class and click right here where it says help, and you can either do a call or a live chat with the Canvas support line, and they can help you with that. That's issues with the website itself, so like submitting an assignment, doing a discussion post, that sort of thing. If you're having a last-minute issue with something with the assignment, if you email me late on Saturday night, I'm definitely going to get back to you, but it's not going to be until Monday because I'm not checking my emails then. But you've got the Student Success Center. They're open until midnight this week on Saturday. So if you do run into any sort of last-minute issues and need some help with something, then go right into the Student Success Center, and they can help you with that. Okay? So any questions on that at all? All right. Well, let's talk about, before we go into that, let's go and jump into our work for week 3. And I want to talk about a few common issues that I saw and how to avoid them or fix them. Sorry, InDesign's taking a sweet time starting up here. There we go. Now I want to show you something. This is a perfect example. This is what I just got. It's on my other screen. This document contains 4 links to sources you are missing. Can you find or link to missers? So this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about with the packages. I downloaded the files for this assignment, but I deleted those files when I was done, right? And so now I'm trying to open this, and InDesign is saying, well, I don't know where those pictures are. I don't know where those linked files are, and it's because I trashed them. So this is a great example because I'm going to show you how to relink those if you are missing files like that. Yeah, Misty, it's fine. You can definitely record if you want to. But yeah, I'll have this up on YouTube probably within 45 minutes of this getting done too. Okay, so let me show you what this looks like, because you will, I'm sure, run into a situation like this while working in InDesign at some point. So here you can see, you guys see I've got these little question marks here? Those question marks are missing links. So it's saying like, okay, this picture goes here, but I don't have it. And so if I were, looking at this, you might think, well, there it is. What are you talking about? The picture's right there. But it's doing a very low resolution preview there just so I can get an idea of what it would have looked like. But if I were to export this or print it, then it wouldn't work. It wouldn't do that because it's too low resolution. But so all my linked files are missing. So let's go into the classroom and just re-download those assets, and I'll show you how to reconnect with linked files if you lose that connection. Okay, so I've got my assets again. So, and you see that they all disappeared, or all the little things, it relinked it automatically. So as you can see, that's a good example too. It tries to take care of problems on its own, and when it can, it just does. So just by re-downloading that into the same place that it was before, it fixed that issue. So let's fool it though. I'm going to go ahead and quit InDesign, and I'm going to take this folder and I'm going to put it on my desktop. Now, this doesn't always work. Sometimes it's able to see where I moved it to. Well, let's see if that fools it. No, it found it. Okay, so let's try one other thing then. Let's get rid of this. And I'm going to change the name of this folder to download. Let's see if that can fool it. If it doesn't, we'll proceed and I'll show you where the things are, but I'd rather be able to have it actually have them lost. Okay, so that fooled it. By changing the name of the folder it was in, it no longer knows where they are. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, so that message just telling me that it's lost them. So where I do this relinking is in the links panel. So I'm going to go up to Window, and I'm going to go to Links to bring out my links panel here. And you can see I've got these 4 linked files, and every one of them has a question mark by it. The ones with the question mark by it are the ones that are missing. So if you know they didn't all have the question mark, then they'd only some be missing. So all I need to do to relink this is I can either double click on here, or I can come down and click on this little chain symbol down below. Either way works. You double click on that, and you'll see that it opens a file browser, and it's basically asking me to go find the folder or find the file. It's saying, okay, so where is this file? And I can see right here what file name it's looking for, or I can also see over here it's the CyberAware tip one. So I'm going to go, okay, well, there's the download folder. It's the CyberAware tip, and I'm going to click open. Now, like I said, it tries to fix things on its own. So because all of my other links were in that same folder, it automatically fixed them too. It said, okay, well, you know, I found the other ones there too, so you're good. And now they're all found again. Okay, so very simple, but it is something you need to be aware of. You know, you need to like relink them if it gets broken somehow. Okay. So, Misty, that's a good question. The folio text. So the folio text, it didn't actually have in the instructions. It didn't actually say what size to make the folio text. So I just did a 12-point font on both of these, and it seemed to look about the same as the. So I didn't actually use the styles in the folio because there was no style that was set. Well, actually, I used the body style for the one on the right for the page, or the page number and the date. That I use the body style for. But this one over here, there is no style that matches it. So I just did it a 12-point font, used Helvetica, or if you used Arial, you can use that, and then made it blue and bold and blue and red. Just went by eye on those ones. Does that make sense? Yeah, the full, just right down there. Yep, no problem. Okay, so any questions about recovering linked files that are missing? Okay. Now, you can also do some other cool stuff from over here in the linked files area. For example, let's say that I wanted to print this newsletter. Well, these images, I can see when I select an image, you can see down here like a whole bunch of information on the images. And I can see right here that this is definitely high enough resolution, but this is an RGB image. And if I'm printing it, it should be CMYK. Now, you don't need to worry about doing this for our assignment this week. We're not getting that detailed. This is more for the future while you're putting together your own things. You can actually, right from here, if you just right-click on the link, you can say Edit With, and I can just say I want to edit this with Photoshop, and it'll open up that image right in Photoshop, and I can convert it. I can do whatever changes I want. In this case, it would be to convert it to CMYK. I could, I could go on and resize it, whatever I feel like I need to do. And then when I hit Save and come back to InDesign, it will have put the updated file in place. So this linked folders is very handy for not only managing, just like what we've been using it for to make sure things aren't stretched and squished, but very handy for actually managing the files themselves that you're using as linked files. Okay. Oh, no problem, Amy. Thanks for coming in. All right, so that's one thing that I want to talk about was the linked files. So let's talk about some common issues that I saw. Well, here's a question that I had from people, and I want to just explain. Let's see here. Oh, there's my, where'd my files go? They're hiding behind my lock file. In the example, you see how this bullet has like no space between it? It just has the dot and then just says pay right away. I had a couple people ask me, because sometimes the bullets, in my case, it's actually doing all right. It's putting it a little bit like that. But in some cases, the bullets get funky when you have the image wrap on. What they actually did is they faked it. They turned off the bullets on this paragraph and just put a the option 8 that we did to get this bullet down here. So you don't need to worry about that. I'm not going to, just having it on bullets the way you did it works great. But if you were one of the ones that was wondering, why isn't my bullet right up against it like the one in the example, that's why they actually faked that one. So another common thing that I found was putting too much on the master page. So, and I see this every mod, and it's really easy to get mixed up when you first start working in here. Just always remember to look in pages and make sure that you're working in the right area. The only thing you want on the master pages, in this case, is that folio down at the bottom. But in any case, the only thing you want in the master pages are elements that you want to repeat on other pages as well, okay? You do not want to just build a page of your newsletter on the master pages. So always double check, make sure that you're working down on your actual file after you've done something in the master pages, because it's easy to forget and stay in there and do more work when you didn't mean to. All right. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about has to do with overrides to styles, okay? And I don't want to mess with my document too much here, so I'm going to just create a new document. And with this document, I'm going to go to my paragraph styles, and I'm going to click on my little menu and go to load all text styles. And we're going to go to my desktop and load the styles from my other document. Okay, so now I have all those same styles. So let's just say that I put some text in here. Let's say I've done this text here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to format it with my body style. Okay. Now you see how it put. This is actually really another good thing to see. You see how it pushed all those out really far apart. Well, that's not what my body style looks like. They're close together. Does anyone know why, when I applied the body style to this page, that got so shoved apart? And I'm not gonna be surprised if you don't, because it's something we haven't run into before. All right, so what it is, this style has settings on it for, where are you? Baseline grid. This style says I want you to align all of my text to the baseline grid. Well, I didn't go change my baseline grid in this new document yet. If we say show baseline grid, this is my baseline grid. Well, I have a leading set for this style of 15 points. By default, my baseline grid is 12 points. So what ends up happening is that it does a line of text, then it says, okay, well, now I have to do 15 points of space for the leading. And by doing that, it pushes it down below the next baseline grid. And then it says, okay, now I have to align to the next baseline grid, which pushes it down to the next one. So it's basically double spacing it. It's going every single line. So if you ever run into that, if you apply a style and it shoves things out, pushes things further apart than it should, that's usually because the baseline grid settings are not set correctly for your leading settings. So I'm going to come here and I'm just going to change my baseline grid to be the way that we want it based on the original document. And you'll see that fixed that instantly. Okay. So now I've got this text in here, and I've applied a body text style to it. And this is what I want to show you. Let's say that I select some of this, and I bump it up to 13 points. Okay. So it's not hugely noticeable, but it doesn't look good. And that is, this paragraph here is bigger than the other ones. Now, what I want to show you is if I select this text and I go to my paragraph styles, you're going to see that it's got the body style, but there's a plus sign after it. That plus sign means you've changed something. Okay? So if you've set up your styles correctly, if you have your styles set up the way that you really want them set up, that plus sign is a sign that there's a problem, right? That plus sign is saying, okay, you did apply the body style here, but you changed something after you applied the style. So this isn't actually the body style anymore. This is originally the body style with something different now. Does that make sense? If we went over to my original one here and I selected any of these, you'd see I don't get that plus sign except for in one place. The cyberware trip is header 2 with a plus sign because I centered it. And I meant to do that. I'm aware of the fact that it's centered. I know why. And in fact, if I hover on here, it says what the override is. See, it says overrides, option clear to click, align, centered. So it tells me what difference there is. So I can go here and do the same thing. Okay, paragraph styles, what's going on here? Size 13 point. There's where you made the change. So that way I can know, okay, did I mean to do that? Did I want this 30 points? No, I didn't. I want this to be the regular body style. And if that's the case, all I have to do to clear those overrides, I have to do to put it right back to the body style, is hold down the Option key or the Alt key on a Windows computer and click on body again. And you'll see how that shifted it back and that plus sign is gone. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. That's a very important part of working with styles. It's something that I see very, very regularly is someone creating a style as a starting point, but then kind of going in and like making changes to the formatting, but not updating the style. And then they get to a point where they like look at something and they're like, well, wait, why is this doing this? Why is that this color? Or why is that a size? It should be this way, like my style. And all you have to do in that case is just clear those overrides. Hold down Option or Alt, click on the style, and it'll get rid of those for you. Okay. Any questions on that? All right. Now, and then one other thing with the tabs, most of you did a great job of that. I'm just going to show you two things that I've seen that can cause issues with the tabs and leaders to watch for if you are having an issue and wondering what the heck's going on. I'm going to go ahead and just select this, and I'm going to write in here, well, let's go Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, oh, Article 4. Okay, so one thing that I've seen that is, a common thing that can cause headaches with the tabs is not having selected this text box before opening the tabs, okay? So if I just have this just deselected and come over and say, all right, I want to work with tabs, it's just going to throw it on my page somewhere, but not where I need it to be, okay? If you select it first, it pops it right on top where it needs to be. But if you do make the mistake of not selecting it first, all you need to do is select it and then come click this little magnet icon here, and it'll pop it up on top. Okay, so that's one issue that I've seen. The next one is the biggest issue I've seen, though, and that is if I come here and I say, okay, so I want a tab on here to go to 3, and I want periods for my leaders. All right, and I'm going to go tab, go down here to that, and go tab, and type my page number. Perfect. Now I'm going to go down to the second one, and I'm going to hit tab, and it didn't do it. You see that? I hit tab, and it just did my normal half-inch tab. There's no period leaders. Why didn't it do it the same as my first one? Okay. The reason it didn't do it is because of the fact that I had the cursor on this line. Tabs are considered paragraph formatting, so any changes I make in that tabs panel, I should say, is only going to affect the paragraph where my cursor is. When I go to a new paragraph, it's completely reset, and I can set, and I basically have to set it up every single time for every single one of these lines in order to have it do it for everything. Okay, so what's the solution? If you want it to apply to a whole text frame like this, you have a table of contents, you want to apply to all of it, don't put the cursor in there. Just select the entire text frame, then do your setup. Then you can go in and put your cursor in there, and it will, At least it should. What is that going on? Oh, it's because I already had a tab there. Oh, it's because I didn't click on here. That's why. Let's go back. Oh, wrong thing. Okay, let's go back in there and let's click on here this time. There we go. 3-inch leaders. There we are. Now it does it on every single line. Okay, so that's another thing that I've seen that can be annoying. I run into that all the time where I'm actually in typing when I do a tab, and then I realize, dang it, I didn't want to do that. I want it to apply to all of these. In which case, just hit escape so you're not in the text box, but just select the text box and adjust the tabs from there. All right. All right. And then the last thing that I saw, that there wasn't necessarily a mistake, it was just, I think, people forgetting to do it, and that it was not having the extra space between the edge of this gray box and the text and the image down here. And remember, the way you do that is just by selecting it and going to Object, Text Frame Options, and you add that as inset spacing. Now this is an awesome panel, and here I can also vertically align my text. So by default, text automatically goes to the top of a text box, but I can come in here and say I want the text centered in the text box, like up and down centered, or at the bottom of the text box, or justified, spread out from top to bottom. I've got some nice controls in here for other things as well. So those are the most common issues that I saw with the newsletter. Do any of you have any specific questions, anything that you ran into doing the newsletter that you'd like me to demonstrate or show you how to fix, a problem you want me to show you how to fix? All right. Well, then let's move on and talk about our work for this week. So for our discussion this week, we are talking about Adobe's mobile applications. So these are applications that Adobe has created that are meant to specifically work on like iPhones, Android phones, iPads, and certain Android tablets. They've got some amazing programs, and the cool thing is that your Adobe Creative Cloud ID, the account that we provide you guys while you're in school, makes these all work as well. So these are all free if you guys want to download them and play around with them. What you're going to be doing is you're going to go to this website right here, and this website lists all of Adobe's mobile applications, okay? And I use several of these very regularly, and they're built to tie directly back into the desktop apps, right? So you can be out, start working on something, on your phone or on your iPad, and get back and just have it like, already show up in InDesign through the Adobe Creative Cloud, all ready to continue the work and using the more powerful tools that we have on the computer. So what you're going to be doing this week is you're going to go through and look at some of these applications. And you can see they've got a whole bunch of them here. You're going to look at some of these applications, and particularly you want to look at ones that you don't need to limit yourself to this, but just so you know, every application, down here where it says companion apps, it shows you other applications that like you may want to, this works well with. They have a workflow that might be something you'd want to use. So and some of them are the desktop ones, like for this Adobe Comp, you've got Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, but some of them are the other mobile applications. Like this one right here is that Adobe Photoshop Sketch. Those two work really well together, right? So if you look for ones that have the InDesign symbol, the ID, then it'll make it a little easier to answer the question for the application. However, it's not limited to it, right? What you're going to do is you're going to choose one of the mobile apps, describe what it does, and then describe how you could integrate that into a workflow with InDesign. Okay, how could you bring this together, and what type of project would you create? Then talk about, will this knowledge of InDesign's power give you an advantage in obtaining work in this industry? Why or why not? Okay, so let me give you an example of how you could do this without the InDesign symbol. For example, Adobe Photoshop Sketch does not have the InDesign symbol as one of their, hey, this works great with it. But I could definitely use this in InDesign workflow, because this is a drawing application. I could just be out. I could be on my iPad. I have the iPad with the Apple Pencil, so it works fantastic for drawing. I could be out, use that drawing program to create a drawing that I want in a layout, and then I would just bring that directly into InDesign when I got home, and it's all ready to use to go into my layout that I'm working on. Okay. And like I said, there's a whole bunch of them. You got tons to look through. So have some fun, explore them. And if you have a device that supports them, then I would highly recommend downloading them. And like I said, they're free to download, and they just have you log in with your Adobe ID when you get them downloaded. And since you guys have the Adobe Creative Cloud through us, it'll just unlock them immediately, and you can use all the features and play around with them. Okay. Now, as usual, make sure that you're doing your initial post by Wednesday, so by tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Make sure that post is at least 150 words long. It has one citation. Also, make sure that you're replying to at least 2 of your classmates' posts by the end of the week. That's the points that I most often see just kind of left on the table. Just take some time, go in and reply to your classmates' posts. And make sure you're participating in one way or another on at least 2 days of the week. Okay? So, any questions at all on our discussion for this week? Okay. Now, in addition, we have a new thing this week, new for other weeks of this course. I'm sure you guys have seen this in your other courses as well, and that is this career integration. The career integration, it's staged like a quiz, but it's not a quiz because you don't need to have any pre-learned knowledge on it. What it is a chance for you to give us some feedback on the course. It's 3 questions long. It's a time to go in there and just do some brainstorming and think about, like, okay, so what things are going to be useful to me here, in what way, and also just to give feedback on the course itself, on me as an instructor, on the assignments that we have in here, and it's really, really useful to us because this is how we, or one of the tools that we have in order to continue to improve our courses and improve what we have to offer for you guys. So please do take the time to go in and answer those questions. Like I said, it's only 3 questions long, and they do have 15 points tied to it, so you get those points. And then for our assessment for this week, this is a quiz like you had in the other weeks. It's cumulative, so it's going to be going over information you learned in weeks 1, 2, 3, and this week. So it's not just going to be for week 4. Okay. And it is, remember how many questions? 14 questions long. It's not timed, but that's the assessment. Okay. So that leaves us with our assignment. So for our assignment, we are finishing our newsletter. We did pages 1 and 4 last time. We're going to do pages 2 and 3 this time. And as you're going to see, we did most of the work last week. It's actually very simple, comparatively, relatively very simple to finish the newsletter from where we are now. Okay, we've already got our styles in there. We've already got our folio set up with master pages. We've got a lot already pre-done that's going to make finishing this up go very quickly. Now, one of the things that you get points for in this is to make the changes to week 3 that I suggested in the rubric when I graded your week 3 one, okay? So the very first thing you're going to want to do is go in and look at those and make any necessary revisions to your week 3 one so that pages 1 and 4 look correct for this week. And it's, make sure to do that because it's a chunk of points. I don't want you guys to miss out on that. For most of you, it's going to be very small, very simple things that need to be taken care of. And it says here to duplicate your file. You're building on it. You can duplicate it or just rename it. I don't really care which one way or the other. And then you're going to make those changes. Then it says download the articles and photographs below if you haven't already. This is the exact same file you downloaded last week, so you don't need to re-download it if you kept it. It's just if you happen to have gotten rid of the ones from last week. Okay. You have to use all the text provided. You have to use all the photos provided. If you need to adjust your style sheets, then you can do so, but make sure to change them within the styles itself. You shouldn't need to, though, as you'll see when I go through it. And then make sure to follow the general layout because you focus on learning these tools, okay? And then in the end, you're going to package that, and I'm going to demonstrate that one more time today because I have had a couple of people struggling with that as well, and I want to make sure that you have a good demonstration on getting it packaged and ready to submit from there. All right? So nothing tricky this week. It's just finishing this up. So here we have my week 4 one, and actually I'm trying to think, let's actually go ahead and take our break now before I start rebuilding. That way I can keep it all together as we do the rebuild, and they'll give us a few minutes to go stretch our legs or get a drink, whatever we need to, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and set a timer for 15 minutes. When we come back, we're going to jump right into a demonstration of finishing up our newsletter for our week 4 assignment. All right. I will see you guys in 15. Oh, Jordan, yeah. Sorry, I saw your message there. I'll do that first thing. Go around and duplicate it. Yeah, when we get back. Okay, we are back. So let's start. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Well, first of all, can you guys hear me okay? All right, great. So I'm going to, we'll look at how to duplicate, first of all. There's a couple ways you could do this. One would be not even going in InDesign at all. Here's my file. All I would need to do is just do a right click on that, and there's a duplicate option. If you're on a Mac, I'm pretty sure that same option exists on a Windows computer as well. Or you can also, so I just made a copy of it right there, and then I could just rename that just by pressing return, type in the name, press return again, and it's done. You can also get to that same option up here in the menus, right here under File and Duplicate, or Command D is the shortcut for that. But if you have any problems with that, you can also just open the file in InDesign. And then from here, I would just say File, Save As. So if I do File Save, that just updates any changes I've made to this original file. If I do File Save As, it asks me questions again. So at this point, I could rename it. I could just say, well, name this to week 4 example, and I'll click Save. And you'll see that now I have 2 of them on my desktop. There's the week 3 one, and it's just going to be left alone now. And here's the week 4 one that I'm currently working on. And I can tell that I'm working on the week 4 one because here in the tabs, there it says the name of the file, week 4 example. Okay, so either of those ways would get you a duplicate file that you could continue forward with from there. All right. So now, since we've got 1 and 4 done, I'm really just focusing on this spread here. And this is our first time working with a spread. There's nothing really difficult about it, but we just need to remember that we're dealing with 2 pages. So if I go to my mock-up example here, there's page 2, there's page 3. So this is going to be on the left side of that spread, and this is going to be on the right side of that spread. Also, if you notice, I'm going to go ahead and shrink these down a little bit. The article on page 2 runs 3 columns long on page 2, and then continues into the first column of page 3. So I need to, make sure to set up my text frames accordingly so that it will flow across and do all 4 of those columns rather than just the first 3. Okay, so excuse me, let's look at a couple of ways. So, well, okay, last week the way I set this up, in most part, I started at the top, I put the headline, and then I did the big image there, and then I started laying text boxes down. And I could, but another way I could do this if I wanted to is I could just set text boxes up right from the beginning that ran the whole height of it, and then when I put the picture in, do a text wrap so that the picture actually pushed the text boxes to have the text go down. For this particular one, I think it's going to be easiest to kind of do a little mix of that. I'm gonna not do that with the top image here because it's so big and it takes up all 3. I'll just set that up in the first place. But I am going to do that with this bottom one. I'm going to use a text wrap to adjust this one rather than trying to make a little tiny text box that's the right size. So let me show you what I mean by that. Here, I'm going to start on this right here. Let's go ahead and put in a text box for my title of my article right up here first. Okay. I'm going to go, for some reason my paragraph styles always want to default to my body style, or my heading 1, I noticed on this one, but that's not a problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up this document. I'm just looking in my downloads folder here, but I'm doing it on another screen. And this one is an article that's called Get More Out of Your Study Time. So the file, I'm going to look for a file with a similar name. And it is, Study Time, there we are. That not open, there we go. So that's opening in Word. Give that just a second. There we are. So it opened, it's on my other screen, but you guys will Get it there. There's a Word document. So the first line of this is the title, and that's what I'm dealing with this text box. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab that, and I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to format that as header 1. Okay. Now that I've got that in place, I'm going to just make this text box a little smaller, get it out of the way. Now I'm going to make an image frame. And this image frame is going to cover all 3 columns from margin to margin. And looking at the example, it doesn't go quite all the way, or quite half the way down. So let's put it at about, I'll just put it here to start. I might adjust that later. Now notice that you want to keep an eye out for this sort of thing. I didn't quite line that up on the right side right. It's sticking out further, and I did the same with that. So I'm going to switch over to my selection tool, and I'm just going to adjust both of these frames to align with my margins. I want to make sure to keep a close eye on that with guides and margins. Now I'm going to select this text or this image frame again, and I'm going to go to File and Place, and I'm going to go browse into my download folder, and I'm going to look for the image called Study Time 1. There's 2 of them for study time, and I'm going to go ahead and open that, and then I'm going to go fit it by using this button up here. Okay. Now I can see just by looking at the example that this image is going to have to be taller than that. Look at how much of his head is showing up here versus how much is showing up there. And look at how much, it goes down actually below his elbow. So I can adjust that later if I wanted to, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it now just because I can see that it's so obviously he's going to need it. I'm just going to bring that down, and let's go ahead and fit that again. Bring it down a little bit more. And that looks a little more like it, so I'll just leave it like that for now, and we may adjust it later once I get my text in there if we see that we don't have enough room for all the text. So now that I have my image in place, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on my text frames for my article. I'm going to go to my text frame tool, and I'm going to create one here that runs the exact size of that column. And I'm going to switch my paragraph style to body, because I don't know if yours is doing that. I think it has to do with the order I created them in, but it keeps wanting to default to the header one. I'm also going to pull this down a little bit, just give a little bit of a margin up above that so it's not right up against the picture. And now I'm going to I could draw these one at a time, but I'm going to hold down Option or Alt on your Windows computer, and I'm going to drag copies of this text frame into those. So now I've got 3 text frames in those 3 columns. And then the last one, I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, and I'm going to drag it over to the first column of the next page, because as you remember, this article spreads those 4 columns. Now I want to connect all these so that my text flows through them. So I'm going to select my first text frame, and I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and I'm going to click the little bit larger square that is not quite in the lower right. Then I'm going to come, and when I put my cursor over my second text frame, you'll see I get that chain link. It's going to click to connect them. I'm going to do the same thing here. Click that box on that one. Go to the third column. Click with the chain link. Click on the third column box, and then go to my fourth column and click there. So now these are all connected, and I can go and I can select my text for the rest of my article and copy that and bring it over here and paste it into place. Okay. So far so good. Now, I'm going to do my formatting at this point, but I want you to keep something in mind. Another common mistake that I saw, and it just gets, you got to get in the habit of doing it. Make sure you're not having any issues where there's too much text for your text boxes. The problem is we'll paste text into it, it'll look great, then we'll go and apply our styles, change some sizes, do whatever we need to do, and we won't notice that we've pushed some of the text outside of the text box. So keep a close eye. The easiest way is to always look at this, green dot. This is no errors. If you see that turn red, look and see why by clicking on the arrow, going to the pre-flight panel, or by just browsing around, and make sure that you don't have any overset text, any text that's going outside of the text box. Okay. All right, so let's get this formatted the way that I need it formatted before we worry about the next picture. One thing, this is, it's the way they laid it out in Word, so it's not necessarily how I want it. They've got these bullet points with a tab here. I need to get rid of that tab and that bullet because I'm going to use my bullet style here. So I'm just going to get rid of those, the extra tab and the extra bullet there on all of these 3 paragraphs. I've also got 2 spaces here for some reason. I'm just going to reduce that down to 1. Same with here. I've got 2 spaces here. Let's get rid of the extra one. And here, let's get rid of the extra one. So that looks pretty good to start. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply my styles. I already applied this to the body style. So if I go over to my paragraph styles, you'll see they're all body right now. There's no plus sign. It's all ready to go. So I just need to change the ones in here that shouldn't be body style. So the first paragraph should be a drop cap style. I added in that drop cap there. These, I've got a few headers here, there's a few subheaders that need to have that subheader style. Your approach matters, your environment matters, and schedule matters, and learning matters. All right. Now, one thing I can do, if you want to get this as exact as possible, and again, I'm not grading it to be like absolutely 100% exact. I'm going to show you how you can do it, but just know that the change I'm making, I wouldn't deduct points for if I was grading this for you. But I like to get it really exact, and one of the things I can do to see if my picture is the size that I want it to be is look at how much text ended up in this column. So down at the bottom of this column in my example, I've got 3 lines of text. On mine, I've got 2. So what that tells me is there should be 1 more line of text height in this column, in all the columns. So I'm just going to pull that up a little bit, and there it goes. Added that third line of text, but then that means I need to make my picture a little bit smaller because I don't want it to be right up against my picture like that. So let's go ahead and just drag this up, maybe to about there. See if that's too much. We can go down a little bit from there. Maybe about here. That looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and just fit it again so it's centered on there. And now I've got that. So now what I need to do is just adjust the height of these other 2 as well so they match that first one. So these all are supposed to start at the same point. And then now I know that this is fitting the way that it's supposed to fit exactly. Now there's one other style that I forgot to apply, so I want to do that now, and that's my bullets. So I'm gonna select these 3 paragraphs here. Those are the ones the bullets are applied to. Go to my paragraph style and apply the bullet style. And there they are. So now I've got this formatted the way that I need it. What I'm missing is the picture that is in the lower right here. And I can actually see exactly how high this picture is supposed to be because since I made that so exact, I can look and see what line this ends on. It ends on be more interesting than, right? So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to take a text frame, or an image frame, I should say, sorry. I'm going to look for the line that says be more interesting than. It's right there. And I'm going to create an image frame that fits that spot. And then I'm going to go over to my text wrap. And I'm going to say that I want the text to wrap around that frame. And you can see how that pushed this to the next line. And, well, let's put my image in there, and then we'll look at the rest of it. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Place. I'm going to browse to my Study Time 2 image, open that, and just tell it to fit without distorting it, fit proportionally. Now I'm looking at the example and I can see, I don't like how low this is sitting, and they don't have it this low in the example, so I'm just going to double click it. Let me use my arrow key to just shift up its position in there so I see more of the bottom and less of the top. Now, here's where I can look and see, did I push any text off of the out of the end of the text frames? And you can see, no, I did not. It ends, there's no red plus sign here. I've still got the green circle. So because I, was looking carefully at how much room I should be using, I didn't push any out. If I had pushed some out, I would need to come over here and make some adjustments. Maybe make this picture a little bit smaller. Maybe make this picture a little smaller so I can make these text blocks bigger, but somehow make some adjustments so that I have room for all of my text. Okay. So far so good. I've got my first article laid out. I've done a little over 1 page of the rest of what I need to do. So now the rest of my design is this other article that's very similar to what we did on page 1, where we have that gray background, only this is filling 2 columns instead of 1. Okay. Now there's one thing that's a little bit tricky about this compared to what we've done. And that is that I can't just use this as a text box because I've got a single paragraph or column here, and I have 2 columns down here. So I need to split those up. There's a couple of ways that I can do that. But let's just start. I'm going to hit W again so I can see my guides. Now, very important, I've had some people turn in with the guides turned off. Make sure you've got your guides visible. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do this well. Hit W anytime you want to see a preview without them. Hit W again to get back into it. If you cannot see your guides, you need to go to View, Grids and Guides, and right now where mine says Hide Guides, yours will say Show Guides, and that'll bring them back. All right, now I want to match the formatting that I did with this one here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to create a rectangle using my rectangle tool that fills this. And then since I have this one already done, I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool just by tapping I, and I'm going to come and click on that box and bring that, and then come and click down on this one. Okay, so the way the eyedropper worked in here, I have to click on the box I want to get the formatting from, and then bring it down to where I want to apply the formatting. And that automatically gave me that exact same color gray, that exact same red stroke. Okay, I'm going to undo that, do it one more time so you guys can see that in action. And there's my, so I've made my rectangle, got it selected there. Now I'm going to hold down, or I'm going to tap the I button to switch to my eyedropper tool. I'm going to come click in the gray of this one. Then I'm going to come click back down on the rectangle I want to apply it to. And that applies that formatting. Now I could manually do that. I could just go in and set the color to gray again and set the stroke again, but this just saves me a lot of time. Okay. Now I also want to make sure I've got some inset spacing on here, but I can't do it yet because I haven't set this up as a text frame. All right. So let's go ahead and just use my type tool, and I'm going to come click in there. And I'm going to go back over to my download, and I'm going to open up the file that is called, where's my example again? What's this one called? Healthy Snacking. And I'm going to go ahead and paste in there both the headline and the first paragraph, because those are up there at the top. And you'll see that that's got the heading formatting, so I'm going to change that in a second. But for now, let's just get back over to my example. So let's go ahead and select this text. Actually, I'm going to select even the one underneath there, and I'm going to go to my paragraph styles, and this first paragraph is actually going to be drop cap. I'm going to set it like that. I'm going to go to my headline here, and it's the little bit smaller headline. So I'm not going to use heading. I'm just comparing it to the headline on the other side, and it looks like it's a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go to my paragraph styles, and I'm going to use the header 2 style. That's a little bit smaller there. And then I'm going to go to my paragraph panel, and I'm going to center it. So again, if I go to my styles, I'm going to see my little plus sign there because I made a change after my style. But in this case, it's a wanted change. In this case, that's exactly what I needed to do. Okay. So I've got that set up. Now let's, whoops, let me type a V. We need to escape to get that. Now let's put in a couple of things that are going to change the way this is positioned in a way that I want it changed. First, I'm going to go up to Object, and I'm going to go to Text Frame Options, and I'm going to add in that inset spacing. Now, if I want to see it, as it is, it's doing it, but it won't change till I hit OK. If I click Preview, I can actually see it doing it while I'm working. And I'm going to click OK. All right, so now I've got my inset spacing. Now, another thing I want to do is I've got actually, in the example, I've got an image up above that headline, right? So I'm going to go to my image frame tool, and I'm going to use, there's a little guideline now for the inset. So I'm going to make sure that it locks into that inset guide on the inside. And if I look at my example, I can see that this image goes down about to the second line. I'm looking at the column 1 to my left, where it says Schedule Matters, and I can see that my image goes down to about halfway through the second line after Schedule Matters. So I'll just do that one. And now I'm going to go to my text wrap, and I'm going to say, make sure to wrap text around that. It pushes that down. I want it to push down a little bit further, so I'm going to go to my my inset here, my text wrap, and I'm going to add some down. And you see how that's just pushing that headline down a little bit. Because I'm looking at my example, it's a little more like this. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my text frame, and I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Place. And I'm looking for the image called Healthy Snacking 2. Or no, Healthy Snacking 1, sorry. That's the bottom one. Click OK. And I'm going to go ahead and fit that within the frame proportionally, like so. Okay. So now I've got my healthy snacking, beginning of the article and the image in place. Now I'm going to show you something. If I go to my object and text frame options on this text frame again, you'll see that I actually have the ability to add columns within this text frame. So if I had a single text frame that was gray like this, but I wanted 2 columns for the whole thing, I can do that right here. I can say make it 2 columns. However, the problem is in this case, I have one section that has 1 column and another section with 2 columns. So in order to take care of that, I'm going to have to create another text frame. I'm just going to do it off to the side here so I don't run into problems with clicking over here. And I'm going to set the paragraph style to body. Then I'm going to press Escape, and I'm just going to drag my text frame that I created over here into the one I'm actually going to use it in. And I'm just going to resize it so it fits the way that I want it. And again, I want to be looking at the inset lines. They're very faint. You probably can't see them on mine. But when you're working on yours, look for the little tiny blue lines that it wants to pop up into that represent the inset spacing that I set. So I get that little bit of a margin on the left and on the bottom. Now that I'm going to pull this down a little bit. It doesn't quite, there's a little more space between them like so. Now I'm going to hold down Option or Alt on a Windows computer, and I'm going to make a copy of this one that I already made over onto the right. And now I've got these 2 columns all ready to go for the rest of my article. I'm going to click on my box, the second to the bottom over here, and click on my second one so that they're linked and all ready for me to put my text into. Now I'm going to go back to the Word document. I'm going to copy the rest of my article. And I'm going to paste that in here, okay? And now I'm going to start doing a little bit of formatting for this. Now, this is kind of, I'm not sure why they did this, but in the example, you'll see that they're bullets. In the text I just copied in there, they're numbered. Now, you can do numbered lists the same as you do bullet lists. If you go up to type and bullets and numbered, you can apply numbers instead. You can have them set up in the style. But in this case, we don't want numbers. We want bullets. So one of the first things I need to do is get rid of these numbers. I'm going to get rid of the extra tab that I've got there and the numbers. Now, it's possible the reason they did this is because that is not an uncommon real-world situation. You know, a lot of times we're getting our text from a writer, from someone who works for the client or has been contracted, whose job is to write the text. And while those writers are writing, it's not uncommon for them to be doing a little bit of just formatting for themselves to make it easier for them to keep track of what they're doing. But sometimes that formatting isn't what we want in the final layout. So we don't, we need to get in the mindset of always adjusting those formatting things in order to fit what we're doing rather than what they did when they originally wrote it. All right, so now that I've got those numbers and those tabs gone, I can just select this and go to my paragraph styles and apply bullets to it. Oh, it's not gonna let me do it because of the going across, so let's just select it in here. Apply bullets. And there we go. I've got bullet lists all ready to go with my text in place, and it's matching my article over in my example. Now, the last thing I need to do in the examples, I've got one more image, and it's actually sitting at the top of that column rather than at the bottom. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to go to my text frame. And let's see, it runs from about the top of this down to where it says tomato on the left in the example. So I'll just do that, pop it to where it says tomato. Let's see if that gives me enough room. I'm going to go to my text wrap, turn on my text wrap, and oh, look what I did. I just cut that off, and it's not giving me enough room for my text. Okay, so again, things we need to watch for and make sure we don't run into problems with. It's actually just one word. They are to cure your, and there's the word craving underneath that. So I'm going to have to make an adjustment in a second. For now, though, let's finish putting in my image. And then go to File and Place. And I'm going to go to Healthy Snacking 2 and open that, fit it. Now, to get this to fit, let's go ahead and just grab my image and let's move it up a line. There we go. That's enough. Now I can go ahead and refit that, and I don't like how his head's being cut off, so I'm going to double click on that and just shift this down. In the example, it's more like about like that. All right. I'm trying to see. Oh, the issue is oranges in the example. I mean, you don't need to do this, but just so you know, in the example, the word oranges is getting hyphenated after the try, and here it's not. Like, yeah, there's not letting me put the hyphen there. Oh, well, doesn't matter. Let's do it like this. All right, so now I've got that all in place. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just double click on my hand tool to zoom out so it's fitting all within the screen. And I'm going to press W, and I'm just going to give it a once over. You always want to make sure that you're, looking at your work when you're done. Make sure that all works, looks the way that it's supposed to. I'm just going to compare it to my example, and it looks like I've got everything in there that I need to get in there. Also, I'm going to look down here at the bottom where it says no errors. If I did see an error, I would click on this little arrow and go to my pre-flight panel, and I would see the error listed here. So for example, if I make this text box too small again, there's one text error. I can click on this little arrow here to see what it is. Oh, it's an overset text error. I can click on that to see the exact error, text frame 3. If I click on this 3 here, it'll take me right to the text frame that's got the problem, and I can go ahead and make the adjustment necessary to fix it. And now I've got my no errors, and I'm ready to submit. So before I package this, any questions on any of those bits of layout that we did to get pages 2 and 3 ready? Oh, I just saw a problem that I've got, though, actually. My text frame up here on the title is not lined up with this left margin. There we go. Okay, so let's get this ready to package then. The first thing I need to do is save it. Now, you know, if this wasn't something I'd done 100 times and really know how to do easily, I would have been saving it the entire time. I would not recommend working and working and working on a project without saving your progress. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, the app crashes my app, you lose all that work. So get in the habit. If you go up to the File and Save menu, you can see that the keyboard shortcut for saving on a Mac is Command S. On a Windows computer, it's Control S. I would get in the habit when I'm working on projects of my own. I very regularly just tap Command S on my keyboard just to make sure that all of my changes have been saved. And so just do that as you're working, and that way you don't have to worry about losing things. So now that that has been saved and updated, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Package. I'm going to click Package here. I'm going to click Continue here. I'm going to double check that these top 3 are all checked and that these bottom 2 here are checked, and they are. And I can go ahead and rename this if I need to. I'll just keep it as it is, Week 4 Example folder. And I'm going to click Package. If you want to don't check again, you can. Otherwise, click OK. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to minimize this so I can see my desktop because that's where I saved it. And here's my package, Week 4 Example folder, all ready to go. So in order for me to be able to upload this, though, I need to create a compressed version of this file. So I can select it here, and I can do a right click by clicking with 2 fingers on my trackpad at the same time. And I can choose Compress Week 4 Example folder. Or if I don't want to do a right click, I can select it and go to File, and File, Compress Week 4 Example folder. And here it is. This is my zip file. This is what I need to submit right there. Okay. So any questions on the Week 4 assignment? All right. Well, then I look forward to seeing it from you guys. So then the last thing I want to do, I want to talk about a couple of tools and techniques in InDesign that are going to be extremely useful for you. You're going to use them very regularly, but that are not necessarily things that we needed for our assignments for this class. So I'm going to just set up an 8.5 by 11 page, just single page, and turn off facing pages. And I'm going to click Create. And so this is what we're going to play around in while we're doing these. So the first thing I want to talk about, we're going to talk about placement and alignment. Okay. A lot of our alignment in design, is very simple because of the guides. Where we can align it right against the margin, or we get little guidelines that pop up when we're centered with something else or aligned with something else. And so some of that just takes care of itself, which is very nice. But sometimes we want more control over how we are placing things or aligning things on the page. Okay. So for that, we are going to use what's called the alignment panel. I'm going to go up to Window, and I'm going to go to Object and Layout, and I'm going to bring out this one that says Align. Okay. I'm just going to bring it over and click it into my panels here so it's available. And I'm going to create a few circles here for us to play around with while we are doing our alignment. Now, let's talk about, first of all, sizing these circles exactly the way we want it to, because when we get into exact placement, that's going to be a part of it. My circle here, if I look up in my control panel, over here on the left, it says W and H. That's the width and the height of my circle. So I can see its size right there. I can also change its size right there. I can also do that by bringing out, if I go to Window and Transform, that has those same things. width and height. And I'm just going to keep this out, but I can also do them up here, like I said. So I'm going to change this to 1 inch wide and 1 inch high, so that we know, when we're working with things that's its exact size, 1 inch. So now I'm going to make a few copies of this. I'm just going to hold down Option or Alt if you're on a Windows computer and pull off a few of those. Okay. So here I have these 5 circles that I want to work with their alignment. Now, when I select more than one thing at the same time, I will get, depending on how wide my screen is, and apparently mine is not wide enough, sometimes I'll get align options up at the top, but it apparently needs to be wider than this. Oh, no problem, Misty. Thanks for coming. So I'm going to close that right here over my alignment panel. These are my options for aligning these objects, okay? And they're kind of broken up into different sections. If you don't see all of this, click these 2 little triangles to the left of the word align. You see it shows more or less. That's the case in any of our panels. But I've got a section called Align Objects at the top. I've got a larger section called Distribute Objects down below that. And then I've got one that says Distribute Spacing below that, okay? And then I've got this one that's kind of, it's in the Distribute Objects section, but we use it with everything, and it's this one that says Align To, okay? So this is how we're deciding what to use as our frame of reference when we're doing alignments and distributions. So let's start with this top section here, Align Objects. What I have here is align left edges, align horizontal centers, so again, side to side, and align right edges. And then over here, I've got align top edges, vertical centers, and bottom edges, okay? So the first thing I need to decide is, how do I want these aligned? Let's look at align to selection first of all. When I select all these, you'll see that I get what's called a bounding box. It's this frame that's going around my whole selection. If I have align to set to selection, this is that box is what it's using as my alignment frame of reference. So if I say align to top edges, you'll see that all these circles will get pulled right up against the top edge of the bounding box, like so. I'm going to undo that by hitting Command Z. If I say align to vertical centers, it's going to pull them all to the center of that bounding box, or bottom. And the same would it be for left, center, or right over here. Okay, so that's align to selection, and that's one that is quite often what we're wanting to do. Now I've got align to key object, but I'm going to skip over that. We're going to come back to that one last. It's a little different. Let's look at align to margins. You'll see now it's just going to pay attention to the margin lines on the page. So top, center, bottom, and it would be the same for left, center, or right. I can say align to page. Now it's just going to ignore the margins altogether and just do it based upon the page itself. And then the last one I have here is align to spread, and that would be if I had the 2-page spread, then it looks at the whole spread rather than just the individual page. Okay, so let's go back to the one we skipped, and that is align to key object. Okay, align to key object has a very specific use, and it brings us back to that transform panel that I had out before. Let's go ahead and bring that back out. I'm just going to pop it in under these ones here. So let's just say that I have a particular object that is exactly where I want it. I've put it in a specific location and I don't want it to move, okay? So first let's talk about how would we put it in that specific location. Are you guys familiar at all with the XY grid? Do you remember that from math at all? It's basically just a way to align things on a grid, on a page. X is the measurement to the right, or side to side. Y is the measurement up and down, okay? And this point in the very top left of my page is 0x and 0y. So basically, if I wanted something to be 2 inches to the right and right at the top of the page, that would be 2x and 0y. So I'm going 2 to the side, nothing down. If I wanted something to be 2 inches to the right and 4 inches down, then that measurement would be 2x, 4y. And you can see them right here, x, y. Also down here in my transform panel, x, y. So if I come over here and I say, well, I want this to be exactly 1 inch to the right for 1x and 2 inches down for 2y, you'll see that it moves that object to exactly that spot. 1 inch to the right, 2 inch down. However, that circle it's 1 inch wide and it's 1 inch tall. So what part of the circle is it 1 inch to the right and 1 inch down, right? The whole thing can't be, because the bottom of the circle is 1 inch away from the top. Well, that's what this grid over here on the very left that has 9 squares in it, you'll see that also in the transform panel, that represents the 9 points of our bounding box for this object. So you've got the top left, top center, top right, center left, very center, center right, bottom left, bottom center, bottom right, okay? Whatever one of these is lit up, that's the one it's looking at. So right now, the top left one is white. That means that the top left square of this bounding box is 1 inch down and 1 inch down, or 2 inches down, sorry, 1 inch to the right and 2 inches down. So that means, since it's the top left square, that means the top of my circle is 2 inches down and the left side of my circle is 1 inch to the right. I can change that though. I can click, let's say I want the very circle to be there, very center of the circle. I can click on the center square in these 9 squares and then come and change that accordingly. Say, well, I want that to be 1 inch to the right and 2 inches down. And it moves it so the very center of my circle is there. Okay, so this thing here and this transform panel, either one, gives you that exact ability. If you have something that needs to be in a very specific location, that's where you can type that location and have it go to that spot. Okay, any questions about that at all? All right. Then let's look at, now that I have this aligned to this spot, let's say that I have all these other circles on the page, and I want to make sure that these are all lined up in a straight line, but I need this one not to move. I need this one to stay right where it is because I put it in the right spot. That's what the align to key object is for. Go to Align panel. I'm going to switch the align to key object, and you'll see this one got that thick blue line around it. The thick blue line is the one, it's saying this is the one that's the key object. Now, in this case, it was the one I wanted. It got the right one. But you can pick which one it is. So just click on, you see if I click on these other ones, they get that blue line. So click on the one you want to be your key object if it didn't get the right one in the first place. And then I can say align to vertical centers, and it'll pull all those ones in line with it without moving this one at all. Okay. So that's align to key object, and those are the different align objects for this first top section, the align objects section of the align panel. Any questions on that? Any questions on aligning before we move on and look at how to do the distribute objects? All right. So I've got these aligned, but they're not spaced right. These two are too close together. These two are too far apart. I want to make sure they have equal spacing as well. That's what distribute objects does, okay? So let's say that I want to distribute it based upon the selection. If I do that, I say align to selection. It's going to do it based on the bounding box again, which means the one on the right and the one on the left will not move. But the ones in the middle will move to be perfectly spaced. Under distribute objects, I have distribute the top edges, distribute the vertical centers, distribute the bottom edges, so that's up and down. Then I have distribute the left edges, the horizontal centers, and the right edges, so side to side. So if I click here and say distribute horizontal centers, it's going to make it so that they all are the same space from the middle, side to side. You'll see it adjusted where they are, and now I've got perfect spacing between each and every one of those. Just like doing alignment, I can change so that it does that based on the margins. See, I've now moved them out so they fit within the margins. I could have it based on the page, or I could have it based on the spread if I had a spread here. So that's the distributing objects, and that's just going to automatically put that little bit of space between each one. Okay. Now I've got another option here that says use a specific spacing. So I could say, okay, I want there to be 2 inches between the center of every one of these objects. And when I click on that, you'll see it spread it out. So now from the center of this circle to the center of that circle is 2 inches. And same from the centers from each and every one of them. Okay, so that's that use spacing part. Now, one other thing with distributing that I see that throws people off, and I want to make sure that you see why it's doing this. Well, you'll notice if I do the left or the center or the right, they're not doing anything different. They're all doing the exact same thing, right? They're staying just right where it is. So what's the point? Why are they different? Well, the reason they're all doing the same thing is because these objects are all the same size. Since they're all the same size, it doesn't matter which of these 3 I use, or it doesn't matter which of these 3, this is just going to be up and down, this is going to be side to side. But if one of the objects is a different size, then that changes. So now I've got this big one here. The reason it changes is you are basically talking about the measurement from the left side or from the center or from the right side of each object. So right now I've got it on center, which means the center of this circle to the center of this circle is exactly the same as the center of this circle to the center of that circle. Well, when I do the left edge, you'll notice it pushes this one closer to that circle over there. The reason why is because the left side of this circle to the left side of this circle is the same as the left side of this circle to the left side of this circle. But since this is such a big circle, that circle fills up a lot more of the empty space between those left edges. If I did the right edges, it would do the same thing the other way. Okay, so bottom line, just remember that if you've got all objects the same size that you're trying to distribute, it's not really going to matter which of the 3 you're going to use. But if they're different sizes, they will act differently. Okay? And then the last distribute spacing thing down here on the bottom, it's very similar to what we did up here, but what it's doing is it's looking at the space between the objects rather than from the left to the left or the center to the center and so on and so forth. It's looking at the empty space. So this is particularly useful, again, if I've got a bunch of them that are different sizes. Then I can grab these, make it based on this, and then I can just go here. This is top and bottom, that's side to side. And you'll see, oh, got to select them first. So you see that when I click this one, it spread them out so that the space between each of those objects is exactly the same. Okay, it's got the same amount of room between each object rather than worrying about the actual left, center, or right of the object itself. So again, that's really useful if I've got things that are different sizes. And then same with up above, I could decide a specific amount of space between each object. I could say I want to have 1/4 of an inch between each object. And then when I click it, it puts that exact 1/4 of an inch between each one. Okay? So that's the align panel. The align panel works very similar in Illustrator as well. And honestly, it's one of the most useful panels in these programs. I use it all the time in here. But it allows you to have that precision in your alignment and in your spacing between certain objects. Okay? Any questions at all on the align panel? All right. Well, then I want to show you one more tool before we call it a day that I find very useful in design. I'm going to go ahead and set a text frame or image frame here. And I'm going to place that B image that I use sometimes in here. And let's go ahead and fit it. Okay, so let's just say that I was working on a design that I knew would involve this image. This image is definitely going to be a part of that design. Well, because of that, when I'm creating my color palette, when I'm deciding what colors I want to use for my theme, it would be wise of me to use colors that are in this image, right? They're already going to be a prominent part of this design, so why not use other colors, in other parts of my design that draw from this image? Well, InDesign has a great little tool that's right in the same thing that the eyedropper tool is in. It's right above the hand tool. It's this one here called the color theme tool. Okay. If I switch to the color theme tool, there's a couple of ways that I can use this. One, I could just come click on the whole picture. And if I do that, it examines the picture and it finds some colors that are the most commonly used in this picture. So here we've got this theme that it created for me that's got that, this purple from there, magenta, the black and a green and an orange, and then this darker orange. And if I click this little arrow to the right of that, you'll see that it's got some different choices for my themes. Maybe I want a brighter one. Maybe I want a darker one. Maybe I want a deeper one, or a more muted theme. The top one there was colorful. So let's just say that I'm like, yeah, okay, this works great. This is what I want to use. Well, then I can click on this right here, and it will save this theme to my swatches. If I go to my swatches panel now, you'll see that I've got a new theme in here called Colorful Theme, and there's all those colors that were here, and I'm now can go ahead and just apply those as I'm working in other places in my design. Okay, so that's one way I can use this theme. I'm gonna hit Escape to close that up. But there's another way. Let's say that I really want to focus on the colors in the plant here. Rather than just click on my image to get the whole thing, I'm going to click and drag a little marquee around this part that I'm interested in. And now you're going to see that when it creates my theme, it's going to limit itself to those colors, that area, right? I could do the same thing. I'm going to hit Escape. I can do the same thing with the bee. Maybe I'm like, I want to focus on these kind of oranges and reds and stuff that are in this bee here, and get those colors for the theme. Okay, so that's the color theme tool. It's something that's new to InDesign, and I believe it's only in InDesign at this point, and it's extremely useful. A great tool for quickly creating a color theme that's drawn directly from imagery that's being used in the design. All right. Any questions on that, on the color theme tool? All right. Well, then that is everything that I have to cover for today. You guys have any questions for me about anything at all before we call it a day? All right. Well, then thank you very much for joining me again in the live session. Like I said, I really appreciate all your hard work this month. Do remember that we will have our multi-session if you need some one-on-one help from me on Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Remember, you've got the Learning Coach available and the Student Success Center available to you if you need some help with anything from them. And you've also got all the other multi-sessions available as well that are hosted by the other instructors. Please remember, we got to have all the work in by Saturday at 11:59 p.m. because the course will close at that time. You won't be able to submit after that, so I want to make sure you guys get credit for everything. And other than that, let me know if you have any questions about anything at all, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll talk to you later.